Hello and welcome. In this instructional video, I'm going to talk about another important part of your research, that's the literature review. In the literature review, you can talk about your independent variable. You can start by defining your independent variable. Let's say you investigate the effects of an online platform on the students' speaking or writing activities. So you can talk about the importance of that online platform. You can define it. You can talk about the importance of that in educational context and English language context. Then you can summarize some related studies. Imagine you investigate the effects of flipped classroom on the writing performance of EFL students. So you can start by defining the flipped classroom, what flipped classroom is, what is this model. Imagine, for example, you can say flipped classroom. In flipped classroom, students' everyday conversation and during the class time and homework could be inverted. In flipped classroom, students can watch some videos before the class. You move the lectures outside the class. Students watch the content of the class, watch some video clips, video lectures, then they are prepared for the class activities. So in this case, students have more collaborative language learning activities because they are prepared, they have watched the video, they have watched the content, and they know about that. You can talk about the importance of this variable, this flipped classroom, or you can, say the importance of that in, let's say, language learning activities, more specific. Then after this, after talking about, after defining your independent variable, after talking about the importance of that independent variable in, let's say, English language context, you can summarize some related studies. In thesis, in dissertations, you are not limited by word count. So you can include the other variables too, the effects of flipped classroom on speaking, on, let's say, soft skills, vocabulary, grammar, different things. But in research papers, you are limited by the word count. So it's better to write concisely. So you can directly talk about the importance, the effects of that flipped classroom, that independent variable on the writing performance of EFL students. You can start by, a general sentence like studies have been conducted investigating the effects of flipped classroom on, let's say, writing performance. For example, this researcher investigated the effects of flipped classroom on the writing performance of EFL students and found this. When you summarize their studies, it's better to consider all the important and crucial parts. For example, when you summarize a study, it's better to, for example, talk about the purpose of the study, what the purpose was. You can talk about maybe the research design. You can talk about the participants that participated in that study. You can talk about, let's say, the procedures, intervention, for example, in the flipped classroom and in the control group. And you can talk about the findings. For example, this researcher investigated the effects of flipped classroom on the writing performance of EFL students, the purpose. Via, for example, a mixed methods research design, their research design. Then the participants. Let's say 20 participants participated in the experimental class, in the flipped class, and 20, let's say, in the non-flipped class or control group. So, participants. Then you can talk about the procedures. The students in the flipped classroom, in the experimental group, watched some related videos, let's say, related videos to writing performance, to writing skills before the class. So they were prepared for the class activities, for the class collaborative writing activities. But the students in the non-flipped classroom had collaborative writing activities during the class without watching some videos before the class time. For example, they had some assignments after the class, like conventional classes. And then the findings, for example, the findings indicated that flipped classroom, let's say, and the non-flipped classroom improved. developed the students' writing performance, but flipped classroom outperformed the non-flipped classroom, let's say, um, in this regard. You can have some summaries like this, summarize some studies like this by, regarding all these steps. It's better because you include all the crucial parts. So when you are finished, when you summarize some studies, you can sum it up by talking about all the literature, for example. For example, you say at the end of the literature review, you can say, as the literature indicated, flipped classroom developed students' speaking performance, some references. Okay, but for example, you find the gap. However, previous research didn't focus on this part of writing, let's say, this specific skill, which in this study you are going to investigate. So you talk about the purposes of your study, the importance of your study, then you can mention the research questions. As I said, most of the time, research questions are included at the end of the literature review, but sometimes they are included at the end of the introduction. So it depends on the researcher's preferences. A well-structured, literature review could be something like this. At the beginning, you can talk about the theoretical framework, which I talked about it in another video. Then you can start by talking about the importance of your independent variable. Let's say this study flipped classroom, the importance of that independent variable in educational context, in English language context. Then you can summarize some related studies, flipped classroom and writing performance. Then at the end, you can, for example, talk about all the literature. For example, as the literature indicated, for example, flipped classroom developed the students' writing performance, but previous research didn't focus on this. In this study, I'm going to focus on this, okay? And you can mention your research questions. That is a good literature review, especially for experimental research. And if you have more questions, you can let me know. Thank you.